Stop scrolling for a moment, because what you're about to hear might challenge everything you believe about pain, power, and the story you've been telling yourself about your life. Most men think their greatest enemy is failure. They think their biggest obstacle is betrayal. They think their downfall comes from circumstances that were too heavy, too unfair, too brutal to survive. But the real danger isn't failure. The real danger is believing that the moment you were broken defined who you are forever. Think about it. Somewhere along the way, life knocked you down. Maybe someone you trusted turned their back on you. Maybe you invested years into something that collapsed overnight. Maybe the world humiliated you in a way that left a scar so deep you still feel it when the room gets quiet. And slowly, without realizing it, you started accepting a dangerous belief that the version of you created by that pain is the final version of you. But history tells a very different story. The most formidable men who ever walked this earth were not born powerful. They were not protected by luck. They were not handed greatness. They were forged by devastation. Consider Niccolo Machiavelli, the political philosopher whose ideas shaped centuries of power dynamics. He didn't write his most influential work from a palace. He wrote it after losing everything. He was removed from office, publicly disgraced, exiled from the political world he once served, stripped of status, stripped of influence, stripped of identity. But in the ashes of that humiliation, he created The Prince, a book that would become one of the most studied power manuals in human history. That wasn't coincidence. That was transformation. Because when a man is broken, truly broken, something interesting happens. If he refuses to remain shattered, he becomes something the world doesn't understand, something unpredictable, something impossible to manipulate, something impossible to control. Today, I'm going to give you 7 laws. These are not motivational quotes. They are not comforting ideas designed to make you feel better. These are strategic truths, harsh, precise, and powerful, drawn from centuries of philosophy, psychology, and real-world power. Truths that have shaped leaders, warriors, and men who refuse to remain victims of their circumstances. If you are ready to stop being the prisoner of your past and start becoming the architect of your future, type King in the comments right now. Let's begin. Law 1. Pain is not the enemy, it is the instructor. The first truth most men refuse to accept is simple. Pain is not your enemy. Pain is your most honest teacher. Every man who has achieved true strength, real strength, didn't rise in spite of suffering. He rose because of it. The experiences that were supposed to destroy him became the exact forces that shaped him into someone unbreakable. Yet most men react to pain in one of 2 predictable ways. The first group collapses under its weight. They replay their failures endlessly. They relive betrayal like a loop. They become defined by what happened to them. Their story becomes their prison. The second group runs from the pain. They drown themselves in distractions, entertainment, validation, noise, anything that keeps them from confronting the uncomfortable truth. But the path of power requires something completely different. It requires confrontation. Instead of running from the wound, you study it, you analyze it, you examine it like a strategist studying a battlefield. Because pain reveals information, it exposes illusions. It shows you who was loyal and who never truly was. It forces you to see reality without the comforting lies you once believed. And clarity, brutal clarity, is the foundation of power. The philosopher Niccolo Machiavelli believed that wise individuals must choose necessity over comfort. And pain is necessity. Pain strips away weakness. Pain removes illusions. Pain destroys the identities that were keeping you small. So instead of mourning the moment that broke you, study it. Because inside your darkest experience is the blueprint for your strongest future. Law 2. Silence is a weapon most people don't understand. Listen carefully to this one, because mastering this principle alone can change the way every room reacts to your presence. Silence is one of the most underestimated forms of power. In a world where everyone is desperate to speak, desperate to explain themselves, desperate to be heard, the person who controls his words becomes extremely difficult to control. Most people reveal far too much. They expose their plans before executing them. They show their emotions to people who secretly celebrate their weakness. They argue when observation would have given them more information. They explain themselves to individuals who have already made up their minds. And every word they speak gives others insight into how they think, how they feel, how they can be manipulated. But a strategic mind understands something different. Every unnecessary word is information surrendered. Every emotional reaction is a signal sent. Every attempt to justify yourself to the wrong person is power you will never get back. Silence disrupts expectations. When you don't react, people become uncomfortable. When you don't explain yourself, people start questioning their assumptions. When you move without revealing your thoughts, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability creates power. The philosopher Machiavelli famously wrote that a ruler must learn to be both a lion and a fox. The lion possesses strength, but the fox recognizes traps. Silence allows you to observe those traps. While everyone else is busy talking, you are gathering intelligence. And information is power. Law 3. Control your emotions, or they will control your life. This is where most men lose the game, not on the battlefield, not in competition, but inside their own minds. A person who cannot regulate his emotions is incredibly easy to manipulate. All it takes is the right trigger, an insult, a challenge, a moment of jealousy, a burst of anger, and suddenly logic disappears. Decisions become impulsive. Consequences multiply. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about this idea. He believed that while you cannot control what happens in the external world, you always control how you respond to it. That response determines everything. When someone provokes you and you explode, they win. When someone betrays you and you collapse, they win. When fear stops you from acting, circumstances win. But emotional discipline changes the entire equation. It allows you to feel everything without being controlled by anything. Anger becomes fuel. Pain becomes information. Humiliation becomes motivation. And suddenly, what used to break you becomes something you can use. A man who cannot be provoked is extremely difficult to defeat, because his decisions come from clarity, not reaction. Law 4. Your circle determines your ceiling. There is a quiet law shaping your life right now. It's called the law of proximity. You become similar to the people you spend the most time with. Their standards become your standards. Their beliefs become your beliefs. Their limits slowly become your limits. If your environment rewards mediocrity, you will eventually settle for mediocrity. If your environment celebrates discipline, you will naturally become more disciplined. The people around you either sharpen you or dull you. The philosopher Machiavelli warned leaders constantly about advisors who tell them what they want to hear. Flattery feels good, but it destroys judgment, because the people who praise everything you do are rarely the ones who want you to grow. Real allies challenge you. They question you. They force you to think deeper. They hold you accountable. At the same time, they are individuals who quietly resent your progress. They smile at your success while hoping you fail. These individuals are dangerous, not because they attack openly, but because they undermine silently. Power requires discernment. You must evaluate relationships based on contribution, not history, not nostalgia, not guilt. If someone pushes you forward, protect that connection. If someone drains your energy or limits your growth, distance becomes necessary, because your environment is shaping your future every day. Law 5. Move quietly. Let results make the announcement. One of the fastest ways to destroy momentum is announcing your ambitions before they become reality. Many people seek validation too early. They talk about goals. They describe plans. They announce ideas. And in doing so, they expose themselves to doubt, criticism, and distraction. A strategist understands something different. Plans develop best in silence. Energy remains stronger when it isn't spent defending your vision to others. And when success arrives unexpectedly, it carries far greater impact. The world doesn't reward promises, it rewards outcomes. Anyone can talk about what they plan to achieve. Very few quietly execute until the results are undeniable. That difference separates attention seekers from powerful individuals. The most dangerous people in any field are the ones nobody saw coming. Law 6. Patience is a strategic advantage. Modern culture worships speed, instant gratification, immediate results. But power operates on a different timeline. The ability to wait, deliberately and strategically, is a rare advantage. Impatient people reveal themselves quickly. They act too soon. They speak too soon. They force situations that would have worked if they had simply allowed time to do its work. Strategic patience does not mean inactivity. It means discipline. It means observing conditions until the right moment appears. History is filled with leaders who lost everything by moving too early, and leaders who won everything by waiting for the perfect moment. Timing is not a small part of strategy. Timing is the strategy. Law 7. Reinvent yourself without apology. Eventually, every man reaches a crossroads. Stay loyal to the identity created by past pain, or completely reinvent himself. The past has enormous psychological gravity. It convinces people that who they were yesterday determines who they must remain tomorrow. But growth requires transformation. The version of you created by previous circumstances may no longer serve your future. And when that happens, change becomes necessary. Reinvention is not betrayal of your past. It is commitment to your potential. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche spoke about this through the concept of self-overcoming. The idea that individuals must repeatedly destroy outdated versions of themselves to evolve into stronger identities. This requires courage, because transformation disrupts expectations. People who knew your previous identity may not understand your new direction. But evolution has never required permission. The final truth: becoming untouchable. All 7 laws point toward a deeper principle. Becoming untouchable is not a destination. It is a decision repeated daily. A decision to govern your life internally rather than externally. Circumstances will always fluctuate. People will always betray expectations. Challenges will always appear. But a disciplined mind transforms those experiences into tools rather than obstacles. The untouchable individual still faces enemies, still experiences pain, still encounters failure, but none of those forces control his narrative. Instead, they refine it, they sharpen it, they strengthen it. The fire that once threatened to destroy him becomes the forge that creates him. And eventually something remarkable happens. The world that once broke him can no longer recognize the man he has become. If you've made it this far, write untouchable in the comments. Because that identity is not given by the world. It is claimed, built, and defended by discipline every single day.